The world, as it is now, lies in tatters. People can be sure of nothing. Employment is hard to come by. Trust is difficult. And even love itself seems like it is in short supply. But it wasn't always like this. No. In fact, things were once quite different. And I refuse to let the memories of better days be lost. So I now relate to you a brief chronicle of yesteryear, told through the eyes of a young black man navigating his way through life. This is 2007. Starting at the beginning of the school year, I began to regularly associate with a mellow fellow by the name of Russell. In previous years, since the beginning of high school, Russell and I had our ups and downs, but this year saw the formation of a friendship. In short, I offered my relationship advice to him, and he continued to make poor decisions about the women he dated. It should be said, he was a good-looking lad and of good stature and temperament. However, the girls he dated could be summarized in one word: questionable. Each and every single girl he consorted with, from freshman to senior year, was eventually found to have cheated on him at some point in time. And of course, he told me each and every single time he started dating someone else that this girl was different. And this girl was the one, which caused me to pity him. I couldn't figure out why this kept happening until I saw the way he treated his lady friends. Chocolates, love notes, poems, treating them as good as he possibly could, and they repaid him by sleeping around. At various junctures, I became personally involved with his affairs, sometimes becoming a messenger when him and his scallywags were not on speaking terms, and other times just talking to the girls and trying to convince them that they shouldn't treat him like garbage. In any case, because of his choice in female companionship, he eventually got into serious arguments with his parents that caused him to end up being kicked out of his house. We had become quite close by this time and strutted through town most days after school, something that eventually caused him to meet my female friend, Katerina, or Kat for short. They were friends at first, but being as they were both single and prone to mingle, they inevitably began to date, which seemed incredible to me, as he himself didn't have a concrete place to lay his head down at night. But in truth, I envied him, because as time went on, it was clear that Kat developed quite a hankering for his affections, and I once had strong feelings for myself. But this could not be helped. I actually remember one time the previous year when me and Kat had walked around town for close to 2 hours during our final exams in 2006, talking about various things, but especially how her boyfriend Boris, an insanely muscular black dude who I was friends with and weight training rivals with, was mistreating her. I must admit that I was beginning to catch feelings for her myself that year. But as Russell had finally found a girl that would treat him right, I said nothing, and we simply became even closer comrades. Now, mind you, at this time, my family and I were residing at my stepfather's mother's house due to the fact that our previous house had become more or less uninhabitable. The roof had been incomplete for quite some time, and the interior of the house gradually succumbed to water damage, mildew, and mold, which led us to move into my stepfather's mother's house for safety reasons. As an aside, I also recall that an assortment of creatures made their way into the ceiling of the house, including but not limited to squirrels, raccoons, and once upon a time I found myself engaged in combat with an actual bat. I was fortunately the victor. These critters, especially the squirrels, would rambunctiously scurry about through the ceiling insulation, disrupting my sleep and peace of mind, and I lived in terror of them someday penetrating through the thin wood above my upstairs room. But I digress. Me and my step-grandma, Helen Wagner, had not been getting along for the majority of the year because of the fact that I wasn't as talkative as she would have liked, which she perceived as some sort of personal affront. Added to this tension was the fact that I was staying out late around time with Russell and sometimes not coming home at all. At this point, which was nearing the end of the school year, I had made a habit of staying out till late at night, sometimes till 1 o'clock or later. In fact, I often stayed out way past curfew, walking around town with Russell. Around the end of April, Mrs. Wagner had definitely had enough. And one day after I had not come home the previous night, I got home from school to find all of my stuff bagged and boxed up. I was in a state of shock, as I had not really believed that she would kick me out. But beyond that, I realized I now had no place to live. I called my mom and told her what had happened, and she told me I was out of luck. But then again, the freedom was absolutely amazing. I can still feel the wind whistling through my afro as I rode my bike around town at 4 in the morning. No one able to tell me otherwise. Skipping school and detentions, with no worries of having to deal with my parents when I got home. The wolf in me loved not having to answer to anyone. It was indescribable. I still needed a place to lay my head, however, so I ended up staying with my older brother Mikhail Weiss for a while. Me and him were close because of the fact that before I moved to the city, him, me, my older sister Renala Weiss, my mom, and my first stepfather, Lars Weiss, all lived together for a significant period of time during my formative years. In any case, we lived in a mobile home with at least 4 other people, so space was an issue. But the 4 other people, Egon, Russell, a different one, Liana, Eva, and Russell's mom, were all people I was already acquainted with and were like family to me, too. So there was no drama between them and I. This is not to say that there weren't interesting social dynamics at play in the household, but I would perhaps delve into those intricacies at a later date. We primarily watched movies, engaged in recreational festivities, and listened to music, often dedicating large chunks of the evening to philosophical debates and discussions about the nature of physical reality, current events, and the supernatural. I regularly indulged my affinity for video gaming, as this was the point where physical rentals were still commonplace, and I was quite invested in both singular play and competition with my housemates. All in all, I would say we got along swimmingly. There always seemed to be an abundance of sweet snacks, of which I was only too happy to partake of at any given juncture, but Mikhail was no slouch when it came to the kitchen, and I remember homemade pizza in particular that was quite scrumptious. Ultimately, this dwelling place proved a stable enough environment for me to adapt to, and I was able to pass all of my classes, despite my ongoing tumultuous experiences.